Okay, hello my friends around the world. I don't usually read the Go Show for you guys in the daytime, but I guess I'm going to read it today in the daytime. Okay, until I get interrupted because someone's going to come visit me and I'm waiting for them, so I'm sitting here waiting. What should I do while I'm waiting? So I'm going to start reading this one because this is going to be my next reading. This, I believe, like the last 10 installments I did of the reading, which I call the most revolutionary writing of Nichiren Daishonin, is also written about the same time. So I want to compare what some people claim is not a writing of Nichiren Daishonin, which I don't believe that that's even a relevant question to ask. Because if you read the writing, you'll know that it's from a Buddha. Whether it's from the Buddha Nichiren or it's from the Buddha, whoever the Buddha was. Whether it was a Nichimoku Shonin or whatever, it was written by a Buddha because it obviously tells you exactly what the Lotus Sutra tells you, that you're a Buddha too. So here's another writing about the same time, and this one is not disputed by these people that dispute that one's not written by Nichiren Daishonin. Okay, so this is called Letter to Misawa. I think I called it something else in the last 10th. I think I called it Mishima. I went to play at Mishima. Mishima is a great place in Japan, off the Izu Peninsula where Nichiren was exiled. And it's the craziest station. I think it's Mishima Station that you have to pay a toll to go from one side of the station to the other side of the station, which is crazy because the station is like a huge Great Wall of China. So you can't go over the thing, you can't go under. Like a lot of these new huge JR stations, which Japan Rail is a semi-private, semi-public corporation, and they're taking over Japan like all the other semi-private, semi-corporate. They used to be public, but all these public things like the what is it called? The Postal Service. The Postal Service used to be completely public like the American Postal Service, but it became Amakudari, which Amakudari means descendant from heaven, which all these people that left the government start these private corporations, which they call private corporations, but they have all these connections with the government, and they just funnel money into their private corporations. And that's what I think JR is becoming more and more. They're having private policemen kicking me out of the station when I'm not doing any crime. I'm playing my music on an acoustic guitar singing, which is not against the law. Anyway, you can go watch videos on that. But anyway, I'm going off on tangents because Mishima, that's why I thought of Mishima. Anyway, don't go there because you're going to have to pay a toll to get from one side of the... If you're walking, you can drive your car 4 blocks over and under the bridge or whatever to get to the other side. But if you don't, you have to pay, I think, 140 yen. I have a receipt, actually. I kept it for my taxes. And just to show people how crazy this is. Anyway, this is Misawa, not Mishima, like I said before. Okay, please tell the people of Suruga that they should unite firmly in faith. I have received your offering of 100 mandarin oranges, kelp, laver, which is some kind of seaweed, I believe, dark green seaweed, that's another kind of seaweed, and kelp is too, and other produce that you took the trouble to send me in this remote mountain place. I have also received the quilted robe made by the lay nun Utsubasa. I just want to say something about this because this already brings up something I wanted to talk about. So I always wondered why, when Sogo Gakkai and Nichiren Shoshu were together, why Nichiren Shoshu had no female priests, which Nichiren had female priests, Shakyamuni had female priests. I never understood why, and I just I guess I just hear my friend coming, so I guess I'm gonna have to go. So we're gonna have to be continued. All right, peace. I love you all. Okay, I'm back at you. I was trying to read the letter to Misawa, and I had to get cut off by a friend, so I'm back at you a little later than it was when I started reading, and the light has changed here, so let me see if I can get a good light on my book. Okay, where was I? I think I just first read the first paragraph about all the things he received, and I was talking about how I was driving to this area before. He was in Mount Minobu, and Suruga, I now forgot. I don't know, look that up. You guys can look that up. I'll put that in the notes maybe. So he's writing to the followers in Suruga in this letter. And this was written, as I said before, about the same year as the last letter I read, which I said I called the most revolutionary writing, which I wanted to compare that writing with this to see if he says anything different, because I think he says the same thing in almost all of his goshas. But you guys think the other one was not written by him, which is really pointless if he says the same thing in all the other goshas. Okay, so I have carefully examined the points you raise in your letter, and I understand. Although the people who study Buddhism outnumber the dust particles of the land, those who actually become Buddhas are fewer than the specks of dirt that can be placed on a fingernail. This, the world-honored one of great enlightenment, clearly states in the Nirvana Sutra. On reading it, I wondered why it should be so difficult, but after some thought I realized that indeed it must be so. Although people study Buddhism, it is difficult for them to practice it correctly, either because of the ignorance of their minds, or because, even though wise, they fail to realize that they are being misled by their teachers. Okay. Moreover, even though one may encounter a wise teacher and the true sutra, and thereby embrace the correct teaching, when one resolves to break free from the suffering of birth and death and attain Buddhahood, one will inevitably encounter 7 grave matters known as the 3 obstacles and 4 devils. These are Sansho Shima. 3 obstacles, Sansho Shima, 4 devils. Okay. Just as surely as a shadow follows the body, and clouds accompany rain, even if you should manage to overcome the first 6 of these Santoshima, if you are defeated by the 7th, you will not be able to become a Buddha. Let us leave the first 6 for now. The 7th is caused by the devil king of the 6th heaven. And the person who didn't like me talking about a specific person on a blog I did before, because I said he was manifesting the 7th heaven, the king of the 7th heaven, or the 6th heaven, sorry, which is the 7th of the Sansoshimas. It's the 4th, 7, the 3 obstacles and 4 devils. It's the 4th devil, is the devil king of the 6th heaven. And he thought that was like totally crazy because this person's not even a Buddhist, and how can I call that? But anyway, anyone can manifest this potential, and that isn't, if you look at it in the secular world and you look at it in the religious world, it means 2 different things, but we won't get into that now unless that's what I get a calling for while I'm reading this. When an ordinary person of the latter age, which is the last 10,000 years after the first set of former day of the law, is the first 1,000 years after the historical Buddha Shakyamuni died. The next 1,000 years is the middle day. The latter day starts with the 5th 500 years, which is the time Nichiren was born, on for 10,000 years. It reminded me of a song in the 70s. On for 10,000 years. Anyway, I won't go singing it right now because my voice is a little dry. Okay, when an ordinary person of the latter age is ready to attain Buddhahood, having realized the essence of all the sacred teaching of the Buddha's lifetime, and understood the heart of the important teaching set forth in Great Concentration and Insight, which was Tiantai's teaching from China. One of the greatest Buddhist teachers up until Nichiren Daishonin. Maybe Dengyo was halfway between them. This devil is greatly surprised. Okay, so once you start realizing you are a Buddha from time without beginning, is what he's saying this without saying it yet. You will be, your fundamental darkness, aka the 6th heaven, the devil king of the 6th heaven, which is your fundamental darkness, which is your small voice inside your head that says you can't do this or you can't do that or you're not good enough. That's what this 7th, that's what the 7th of these 3 obstacles and 4 devils is your little self trying to stop your bigger self from being who you truly be, which is infinite. Okay. so this devil inside becomes, what's happening? This person's going to step into something greater than he's ever, or she or he's ever stepped into, so that your weakness comes out to the surface, which is just old energy coming to the surface to leave your body, but you think it's real. Because everyone thinks this fear and all this doubt and everything stuff is real, but it's just an illusion. Okay, he says to himself, "This is most vexing. If I allow this person to remain in my domain, he not only will free himself from the suffering of birth and death, but will lead others to enlightenment as well. Moreover, he will take over my realm and change it into a pure land. What shall I do?" This is the devil king, which is your lesser self talking when you try to step into your greater self. The devil king then summons all his underlings from the threefold world of desire, form, and formlessness, and tells them, quote, "Each of you now go and harass that votary according to your respective skills. If you should fail to make him abandon his Buddhist practice, then enter into the mind of his disciples, lay supporters, and the people of the land, and thus try to persuade or threaten him. If these attempts are also unsuccessful, I myself will go down and possess the mind and body of his sovereign to persecute that votary. Together, how can we fail to prevent him from attaining Buddhahood?" So this reality has a lot of traps in it to keep you from breaking out of the matrix field. And these are all the ways your own subconscious mind has these many co-workers going out in society and making a reality that seems to work against what your true being is moving towards, to try to prevent you from ever moving out of your fixed reality, your fixed point of view, and your fixed concentricity and form structures and significances. Which is funny, because form structures and significance is what he says the world of form and the world of desire is pretty much what access consciousness says. But we'll get into why Buddhism and access consciousness are both the same teaching, coming from just two different people in a different... One person's mind is a little bit different. I'm not going to give a judgment towards that. But anyway, I'll bring that up later on, because this is going to go far. Okay, so this is what this your subconscious mind, which is creating this holographic matrix, which you call reality, which you think is real, does. It puts the message out to everyone, and everyone responds to your lack of courage to step out of your own shell, of the harder shell of the lesser self, which Daisaku Ikeda talks about in The Son of Jiyu Over the New Land. I, Nichiren, have long been aware of all this, and therefore know how difficult it is for an ordinary person of the latter age to become a Buddha in this lifetime. The sutra describes... Now he's saying become a Buddha, but that's because who he's writing the letter to, these followers in Tsuruoka, aren't yet realizing they are Buddhas from time without beginning. Once he gets his disciples to realize that, which he did with Nico Shonin, he was able to actually teach the level of enlightenment teaching, which we'll get into, which we got into in the last reading I read, but we'll later on go into this deeper. So he's basically teaching at their level of understanding, which they don't yet realize they're Buddhists from time without beginning. So he's kind of like giving them like a little flavor of what they could be if they would step into that. Okay. The sutras describe in many places how Shakyamuni Buddha attained enlightenment and the obstacles he suffered because of the devil king of the sixth heaven, which is his lesser self, which is his fundamental darkness, aka the devil. If you want to believe there's actually a physical being called the devil, then you can go on and believe that, but it's you. You are the devil, you are the God, you are whatever, you are everything and everything more. But you will never step into that because you're afraid to be who you truly be. Okay. Unless you keep following my videos, and then you might get some courage. Okay. I'm just inviting you towards that. Okay, here we go. Let me read that last sentence because there was still more I want to say about it. The sutras describe in many places how Shakyamuni Buddha attained enlightenment and the obstacles he suffered because of the devil king of the sixth heaven, absolutely seem absolutely unbearable. So the operative word here is seem. So he's going to talk about the delusion of reality, which is what seems real. So these obstacles that come at you whenever you're trying to transcend your current reality to move on to a reality that could be, if you were willing to step into it, there's always going to be unbearable obstacles, which he says seem unbearable. He didn't say they are unbearable, they seem unbearable. So it's important you read what I'm reading, not what you want to read. Because a lot of people read what they want to read. They're not reading what's actually written when they read these things. But if you go read what's actually written there and you take it into consideration, you'll know what he's talking about. Okay, so it's seems absolutely unbearable. Okay, the fiendish act of Devadatta and of King Ajatasattu. I always had trouble with this word. I always read it, but I don't ever say it out loud. King Ajatasattu, which was the king. Devadatta was trying to get this king to attack Shakyamuni, and it ended up this king became one of his best followers, and Devadatta turned around and became, again later, a follower as well. Devadatta was his cousin that tried to kill him because he was jealous of the fact that people were following him and not following his twisted way of living. And he tried to kill Shakyamuni many times. He tried to roll a big boulder off the top of this cliff when he was having this shaded area underneath the cliff. He was having a discussion with his followers. He tried to roll a boulder off on top of the group, but on top of Shakyamuni, Siddhartha, Gautama, whatever you want to call him. I just call him me. That's who he is. I'm him and you're him and everyone else is him. He, she, it, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so this king, I don't want to say his name because it's too difficult, were due solely. So the fiendish acts of Devadatta and this king that he tried to get to also persecute him were due solely to the workings of that devil, which is the devil of, and it's your fundamental darkness. So this was Shakyamuni's fundamental darkness, implanting those things into Devadatta's head and into the head of the king. Because that's what it does. Our subconscious mind is so powerful, and the weak side of our subconscious mind and the strong side of our mind are always trying to conflict, because the weak side of the mind wants to keep you the way you are now, because that's how it fears change. But your true self, which is infinite, always knows it can go past that, but it has to break out of the hard shell of the lesser self in order to get there. Okay, so the Lotus Sutra says, since hatred and jealousy toward this sutra abound, even when the thus come one is in the world, how much more will this be so after his passing? End quote. An ordinary person like Nichiren, and here he goes, always speaking, just with Japanese, how they talk. Japanese are always putting themselves lower than everyone else. So they say, why didn't Nichiren always say, I'm a Buddha from time without beginning? Of course, he's a Japanese. Japanese never want to say they're better. They're always going to say, like, if someone says, this is my wife, oh, I'm sorry, but she's not that pretty. She's ugly. That's Japanese culture. You always say your wife's ugly. You say, oh, I'm a piece of shit too, and I'm sorry for taking up your time. No matter who you're talking to. That's just how Japanese work. That's the cult of Japan, which we'll get into another day. It's called self-deprecation, total self-deprecation. So you have no self, and you're always looking up to the cult, which is the ruling, whoever happens to be the ruler at the time. That's nationalism, the cult of nationalism. Okay. The Lotus Sutra said, okay, we just read that one. An ordinary person like Nichiren would not be able to bear any of the tribulations the world-honored one of great enlightenment underwent for a single day or even for a single moment. So he's following his disciples' way of thinking that there's up and down, like the great Buddha is so big above me. But he says in other writings, that's illusion too. So anyway. But people still today who read Daisaku Ikeda's writings, who read Nichiren's writings, who read the Lotus Sutra still can't get their brain around this total equality, which is what Buddhism is all about. They can't. The idea is so foreign to them because they're Inchatikas. Inchatikas left right before the ceremony in the air. They all walked out. There was 5,000 of them, the men of incorrigible disbelief. And anyone who doesn't realize they're the Buddha from time without beginning are taking on the role of an Inchantika. So if you want to go back in time and be in the ceremony air and not walk out, that's your choice, because this reality is reprintable. You can reprint the past, you can reprint the future, anything you want. It's called matrix reimprinting. Anyway, you can call into my radio show if you want to know how to do matrix reimprinting. I'll reimprint your past, I'll reimprint your future, I'll reimprint whatever you want to be reimprinted on, because this reality is completely just an illusion. Okay. Oh, which reminds me, it's 9:10. I have the radio show in 2 hours. I better cut this short. I'm not going to do the whole reading, I don't think. Okay. An ordinary person like Nichiren would not be able to bear any of the tribulations the world-honored one of great enlightenment underwent for a single day or even for a single moment, which is not true, because Nichiren went through worse than the historical Buddha. The historical Buddha did try to get just like Nichiren and tried to get killed, but he never was attempted to have his head cut off on the beach, and he never was sent into exile to starve to death and somehow managed to live off eating snow. But anyway, that's how Japanese do. I've never had it as bad as you, because that's how Japanese talk. You have to understand that by living in Japan for 10 years or 11 years like I have, and then you realize, wait, this is not really what he's saying. He's saying what Japanese do. They turn around everything and use an outside face and an inside face. And anyway, that's another subject for another day. Okay, so he wouldn't have been able to do all that. No, he wouldn't have been able to handle it, because he's just an ordinary person, as he's saying here. Or even for a single moment, let alone all the various persecutions that befell him during the period of 50 years or more. However, it is taught that in the latter age, persecutions will be 100,000, 10,000, million times greater than those in the Buddha's lifetime. So, he just said, I can never bear all that stuff, but guess what? The latter day law, it's hundreds and thousands of times greater than that. And actually, I went through it all. So he just contradicted what he said, and he purposely did that so you would catch what he's saying. And if you didn't catch that, I'm not going to go back and read it. You can rewind the video. Okay. Oh, it's so funny when people think they're not Buddhists from time without beginning. It's a case of mistaken identity you've been living through all your life. You're thinking, I'm a little piece of shit, and I got to put everyone else on a pedestal. Okay. Anyway, you're not as a piece of shit as you think you are, and as this reality's tried to paint you as. Okay, 1,000,000 times more than that in the Buddha's lifetime. I wondered how I could possibly withstand them. A sage, however, is said to be capable of predicting what will occur in the future. With regard to the three existences, that's past, present, and future, an understanding of the future is the mark of a true sage. I may not be a sage. Now he says I may not be a sage, and then he defines what a sage is, and he tells he did that. So he's saying I am a sage, but don't tell anyone I'm a sage, because I'm telling you I'm not a sage, because that's how Japanese talk. Okay, but I have for some time known Japan would in one day bring ruin upon itself because of its attachment to erroneous teachings. I knew that. If I dared to say this openly, then surely I must be the votary of the Lotus Sutra, who the Buddha prophesied would appear in the future age that he was describing when he said, quote, how much more will this be so after his passing, end quote. But if, though knowing what the future holds, I were to remain silent, I would be condemned to be born a mute or a stutterer in lifetime after lifetime. I myself would become a great enemy of Shakyamuni Buddha, the Lord of Teachings, and a traitor to the ruler of Japan. After death, I would fall into the great citadel of the hell of incessant suffering. For years thereafter, I have continuously admonish myself that even though I might lack food or clothing, or be rebuked by my parents, brothers, teacher, and colleagues, or be persecuted by the ruler and all the people, if I were going to waver even in the slightest on that account, I would have done better never to have spoken out in the first place. So he says, you know what? I considered all the fact that I'm going to face greater things than ever the historical Buddha ever faced, and he did, and that's his life story. But anyway, I could never stand this as a common mortal. So what is he saying? I'm not a common mortal. Because I realized that if I step into who I truly be, those things will come upon me, but I will be greater than those things, because that's what it means to be a Buddha. During the past countless kalpas, I may have met the Lotus Sutra several times and aroused the aspiration for enlightenment. However, while I may have been able to bear one or two difficulties, I must have given up when faced with a succession of great obstacles. In this life, I knew that if I were truly resolved to withstand the harshest trials, then I must speak out. This I did, and I encountered great persecution one after another, just as the sutra predicts. So he says the sutra predicts that the obstacles will be greater than the historical Buddha, and he says I did that. So obviously he says that I couldn't handle what the true Buddha went through, the big guy on the pedestal went through. But hey, I've already did that. So he's contradicting himself again. So you can he's doing that to show that you have to read below his lines, otherwise you're not going to understand what he's saying, because he can't say what he needs to say being a Japanese, because Japanese language and Japanese cult, the cult of Japan, does not allow you to say what you truly want to say. So he has to say it in this coded, contradictory argument. And if you don't understand that, you better go back and read it again, or listen to it again. Okay. My resolution is now immovable. So there's nothing that can stop him now. He's already gone past the point of regression in Buddhism. You can't, once you get to a certain point, there's no way back. He's already stepped off the cliff. So he's either going to start flying, or he's going to land on his head and break his head in 7 pieces. Okay. My resolution is now immovable, determined to endure any hardship. I have fulfilled the Buddha's predictions, and I have not the slightest doubt. Now, I am living here in the mountain forest. Even if you should abandon your faith in the Lotus Sutra, how could I regard as strangers the people who, if only for a day or even for a moment, have helped me survive? Never have I cared what happens to me personally. I promise that, no matter what might befall me, I would maintain my faith without regression. And if I became a Buddha, he says if I became, this is where he's also using the reverse logic of Japanese, which he will contradict it in a moment. I would lead all of you to enlightenment. You have less knowledge of Buddhahood than I, and moreover, you are lay believers with lands. So these are people that have possessions. He has no possessions. He's just a monk which has no possessions at that time, until the Nichiren sect twisted it and all the other sects twisted it to become like you have to have lots of land and a big house and all this stuff and many wives and all that stuff. He says, I have no lands, no wife, no children, and retainers. He doesn't have any of those, but you guys have these things. You have land, wives, and retainers, and children. Therefore, it may be extremely difficult for you to sustain your faith throughout life. This is why I have always told you that, because of your position, it would be better to feign ignorance of this teaching. So here's where he's using the same thing he does. He feigns ignorance of him being the Buddha from time without beginning to say what he says, just so you can finally open your mind to what he's going to really say. So he says, feign ignorance. So if the daimyo comes down, or the lesser samurai warriors come down and say, we're going to cut your head off because you're a follower of Nichiren, he says, just feign ignorance. Just, you guys have children, you guys have wives, You guys have land. You have things that I don't have. I'm a monk here up in the mountains. If they want to kill me, that's fine. I have nothing to lose. But I don't want you guys to kill yourselves. This is when they actually, a whole bunch of the Nichiren followers did get themselves killed. And so even though he said, it's your choice, he's given them a choice. And that's the best thing you can give anyone is a choice. If you're going to teach someone, give them the choice of either going your way or going their way. You don't want to tell them, you have to go my way, because, that's not, everyone has choice. And they decided to go with what he's doing as the example, which was right. Okay, so vague ignorance of the teaching. No matter what may happen in the future, be assured that I will never forsake or neglect you. So he says, even if you abandon your faith and you fake that you're not my disciple, if you ever come here, if you ever need my help, or if I ever go to the, next lifetime, go to the land of Eagle Peak, which he always says, which is just, is a metaphor for what he is now in the mountains, then he will still know that you even for one day helped him, because they sent him a whole bunch of good shit. In Japan, we really like seaweed. I really love seaweed. They sent him kelp, laver, dark green seaweed. This is like, you can live off hemp seeds if you really needed to, if the government didn't ban it in our country, this country, the cold of Japan. You can live off marijuana seeds, but since they banned the most beneficial plant on the earth, in Japan, we have to live off seaweed. But seaweed is you can pretty much live, it has all the vitamins, nutrients you need, almost as much as hemp seed. Okay, so at this time, there was actually hemp seed. I don't think that they knew, well, I'm sure they did. In Japan, they've known about the benefits of hemp, because the historical Buddha lived off hemp when he was doing his fasting before he became the awakened one. Okay. So, as for my teaching, regard those before my exile to be the province of Sado. As for my teachings, regard those before my exile to the province of Sado as equivalent to the Buddha's pre-Lotus Sutra teachings. Are you ready for this? So everything he wrote before the opening of the eyes, where he finally says, I'm the Buddha from time without beginning, and so are you, which if you go back and read it, you'll realize that, if you realize it first. First you have to claim, own, and acknowledge that you are the Buddha from time without beginning before you actually read it and understand what he's saying, because you'll read what you want to hear, which is what you do. That's your mind has a very powerful way of reading what you want to hear, not what is written in the text. So he says, from the opening of the eyes on, I'm finally teaching you the truth that I didn't really teach you in the beginning. So he says, take all those as my pre-Lotus Sutra teachings, my provisional, my not yet revealing the truth teachings. I had thought that if the ruler of this country desired to govern well, he would summon the priests of the True Word School for an open debate with me, and that on that occasion I would reveal a matter of truly significant importance. What was he going to reveal? He said in this year, this is 1278, he said he revealed his true self. He accomplished his mission in life in this year. This is 1278, 1279, that between that year, when the last one I read too. And what is that he did? It wasn't a scroll. No. He was going to do it. He was going to wait for a debate to reveal that. And how was he going to reveal that? He was going to use that encoded language he just used at the beginning of this argument, which is people would take in what they wanted to hear and not take in what they didn't want to hear if they weren't ready to hear it. Okay, so I had thought that if the ruler of the country desired to govern well, he would summon the priests of the True Word School for an open debate with me, and that on that occasion I would reveal a matter of truly supreme importance. Before my exile, I withheld this even from my disciples. So he didn't tell them that he was the Buddha from time without beginning, and they were the Buddha from time without beginning until his exile, because this was the most important part of his teaching, which he couldn't reveal until the time was right. So even from his top disciples, he didn't reveal it until after he was taken to the beach to have his head cut off, and they couldn't do it because the sky lit up. Finally, he said, okay, I'm about to just give you an inkling of what the truth is, and he did that in the opening of the eyes, and then he slowly expanded that understanding to where you'll finally fully understand it in the ones I'm reading right now. And if you didn't, you can go back and read the opening the eyes, and you'll see that it's the same thing he's saying all throughout him, but he's just doing it in different coded language so that people can take it in slow increments before they can. Because if you give too much enlightenment to a person at one time, they just fry their brain, and they go, ah, because the fundamental darkness will come up. And I've done that so many times with people. I've tried to tell them the truth, and they just like go, oh my God, I'm gonna blow up. That's what the fundamental darkness looks like. The Devil King of the Sixth Heaven. Okay, I'm not going to do that today because you guys aren't ready. Okay, I had thought that... Okay, we went to that part. Am I ready to go to... No, I'm going to go a little bit longer. I'm going to go 5 or 6 more minutes. I'm not going to read... Oh, I'm halfway through that. I'm just going to... Yeah, my body says go ahead and finish. Sorry. I'll go to a commentary on all the things I read in the next installment of this, but my body says to keep going even though I have the program in an hour and a half. Okay. I withheld even from my disciples for fear that if I should tell them, even in confidence, they might inadvertently disclose it to the true word priests, who would then avoid the debate. So if he told his absolute truth, those pre-witches would get fucking scared out of their minds and not come. And that's the truth he's going to reveal in this letter, and he's revealed in the opening of the eyes, and he's revealed in the letter I read last, which is a long-ass title, and I don't want to remember what the title name is right now. I'll just call that The Most Revolutionary Writing of Nichiren Daishonin. That's my new title. I'm titling it. This is why I refrain from revealing it to each one of you as well. Then, on the night of the 12th day of the 9th month of the 8th year of Boom A, which is 1271. Wow, I was born in 1971, so it's exactly 700 years from the date I was born. Hey, welcome to the new world. Okay, on the 700th day of the writing of this Tatsunokuchi persecution, I decided to come into the body of the being that was occupying my mother's womb and bring her to the Gohans. And anyway, I was very nearly beheaded at Tatsunokuchi. From that time, I felt pity for my followers because I had not yet revealed this true teaching to any of them. With this in mind, I secretly conveyed my teaching to my disciples from the province of Sato. He secretly. That means you have to read below what he wrote in the opening of the eyes to, and actually there's a few other ones I'll read that he wrote on Sato Island that you will be blown away when you finally understand what he really was saying. Okay. After the Buddha's passing, great scholars and teachers such as Mahakashyapa, Ananda, Nagarjuna, Vasubandhu, Tiantai, Miaolo, Dengyo, and Gishin knew this teaching, but kept it in their hearts and did not express it in words. So all these other great teachers, Nagarjuna, Ananda, Mahakashyapa, Vasubandhu, Tiantai, Miaolo, Dengyo, and Gishin, all of these are going from the disciples of Shakyamuni all the way up to the current Chinese and Japanese leaders of the Tendai sect. All knew this truth, that we are all Buddhas from time without beginning, but none of them revealed it openly. But Tiantai did. If you actually go back and read what he said, it's very obvious he was saying the exact same thing, but the people weren't ready to understand it, so he said it in a coded language that only those who wanted to understand it would fully understand it. The same way the coded language that was used in the Lotus Sutra that made all the Dragon King's daughter had to do is hear one word, and boom, it unlocked the key to her own enlightenment, because that's all it is. It's just a remembering who you truly be. So if you guys remember being in the ceremony in the air, which I do, and I didn't walk out, and if you did walk out, that's okay, because you can go back and you can change that now. You can just enter the ceremony in the air, which is right in front of you, which I accidentally I was making a video today and I was turning my camera and I actually showed the ceremony there, which I don't usually show. That was an accident, but I'm not going to go back and change it because the universe is on my side. I can't do anything wrong because I am a Buddha from time without beginnings, because I'm willing to claim, own, and acknowledge who I truly be. Okay, so they didn't express it in words. The reason was that the Buddha had forbidden them to spread it, stating, quote, "After my passing, this great law will not be revealed until the latter day of the law arrives," end quote. I may not be an envoy sent by the Buddha, but my appearance in this world coincides with the age of the latter day. So here he goes again, the coded language. He says, I may not be the Bodhisattva Jogyo or the true Buddha from time without beginning, or whatever you want to call him, but just happens to coincidentally, I'm the one born in that age, and I'm doing everything they said he would do, so I don't know what that's all about. Okay. Moreover, quite unexpectedly, I came to realize this teaching. So somehow, he's not that guy, but he somehow realized the teaching. So here's what it is. The Buddha from time without beginning is your true consciousness. That true consciousness is not confined to your physical body. Your physical body is just the embodiment of you temporarily in this matrix, holographic matrix. It's not a real. This body, it seems real, but my being is way beyond this body. This is just one little, because I go astral project every night or whenever I want to. I go out of my body, I go to another dimensions, and you can go watch my YouTube videos on how to do that, because it's very simple. I've been doing it since I was 4 years old. And you'll realize that you are so much beyond this little shell that you call yourself your true being. So he's kind of doing this, saying, it's not me, this body. It's me that's beyond this body, which is time without beginning body, which I always been, I've always ever been. So he's going to say that. So you gotta understand the coded language if you're going to want to understand anything he says. Because he was living in a time when you had to code things, otherwise people would just freak out, and they tried to kill him enough times. He didn't want to be killed every single day. It kind of gets tiring after a while. Okay, so, moreover, quite unexpectedly, I came to realize this teaching, which I now expound to prepare the way for a sage. So he says, I'm not that guy. But I'm preparing with what I say now, because this is the secret teaching that he was supposed to teach, but somehow he didn't show up. Oh my God. The fifth 500 years happened, all the disasters happened, everything predicted to happen to this guy happened to me, and I actually got his teaching, but I'm not him. Oh my God. So you got to understand that if you're not willing to realize who he is and who you are, only you are being fooled. Okay. With the appearance of this teaching, all the teachings advocated by the scholars and teachers of Buddhism during the former and middle day of the law will be like stars after sunrise, or an awkward apprentice beside a skilled craftsman. It is stated that once this teaching is revealed, in this era, the Buddha images, as well as the priests of the temples built in the former and middle day, will all lose their power to benefit people, and only this great teaching will spread throughout the entire land of Jambudvipa. Jambudvipa is the whole planet Earth and its biosphere. Since all of you have a bond with this teaching, you should feel assured. Okay, so he's saying, now I'm revealing the truth. And this is the teaching that if he would have revealed before the Sado exile, no one would have been able to comprehend what he just said. He had to have his head cut off. He did die on Sado Island, before in Tatsunokuchi, which is actually on the other side of the Japan, near Kamakura. He died. He said, I died there, and my soul went to Sado Island. So he resurrected himself. That's what all Buddhists from time without beginning, they do this resurrection things, which Jesus Christ supposedly did, but it was all metaphorical. He didn't really die. Okay. Atsubasa came a long distance to visit me despite her advanced age, but since I was told that it was merely a casual visit on her way back from the shrine of the god of her ancestors. So she went to a Shinto shrine to pray for her ancestors because she was so stuck in the Shinto religion of Japan, which is the cult of Japan, that she only on the way back decided to stop by and gave a courtesy visit to Nichiren. So he says, I didn't even talk to her because that is no way to talk to the Buddha from time without beginning if you don't realize you're it too. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to go to a Shinto shrine to think you're going to somehow save your fucking ancestors from... They've already dead. They're not going to... There's no way to save an ancestor that's dead. Okay, I would not see her, although I pitied her greatly. Had I permitted her to see me, I would have been allowing her to commit slander against the Lotus Sutra. The reason is that all gods are subjects, and the Lotus Sutra is their lord. So all these ideas of gods are all a mythological creation of, like time is just a social construct. God is a social construct. These are all subject to the true law of life, which is you are a Buddha, I am a Buddha. Wouldn't you like to be a Buddha too? So he's saying I wouldn't talk to her because she was actually going against that understanding. The reason is that all gods are subjects, and the Lotus Sutra is their lord. It is against even the code of society to visit one's lord on the way back from calling on one of his subjects. So if you went to go see the daimyo after going to the samurai guy first, giving the samurai guy all these gifts, and then going to the Lord and say, hey, how's it going, and shaking his hand, that would have been call for cutting your head off in this time period, because you had to understand the rankism of Japanese cult, which is what Japan is a cult. Anyway, I went into that in a couple videos, and I'm going to go more into that later, because all cultures are cults. The U.S. is a cult. Everything that's culture is a cult, and that's why it's C-U-L-T, culture, because it's cult. And you're going to read a lot more. I'm going to read some of the amazing writings of Joseph Shilton Pearce if you don't understand why he says culture is the enemy of biological evolution. Okay, moreover, Atsubasu is a lay nun and should have the Buddha foremost in mind. So she's a lay nun. Because she made this and other mistakes as well, I refused to see her. She was not the only one, however. I refused to see many others who stopped by to visit me on their return from the hot springs resort of Shimobe. I drove through this hot spring resorts area on the way from my performance in Izu area when I drove from performing in, where did I perform? In Yamanashi, in Kofu. You go through the mountains, you see the Fuji River and everything. It's really beautiful, and you see Mount Minobu and whatnot. I hate that word, whatnot. I've never said that before in a video. My lesser self's coming out. I never say whatnot. It's a goofy word. Okay, I guess I can be goofy. Okay, I'm claiming my goofiness today. Everything you resist against and align and agree with, or react and resist to, you lock into place. So everywhere I said I would never say whatnot, I destroy and uncreate everything that is times a Buddhazillion. Okay, I'm going longer than I thought I would be doing. Utsubusu is the same age that my parents would be. I feel deeply sorry to have disappointed her, but I want her to understand this point. After you came here to see me the year before last, I received word, true or not, I do not know, that you were ill, and I wanted to send a messenger to inquire after you. But my disciples said that, much as they understood how I felt, they advised against it, as it might embarrass you. Therefore I abandoned the idea. Acknowledging that such is the way of the world, I thought that if you were really ill, you would inform me through a messenger, since you have always been sincere and faithful. I did not hear from you, however, so I myself deliberately refrained from inquiring after you. Although I have been anxious about you all this time, Impermanence is the way of all things, but last year and this year the world has seen such great turmoil that I wondered if I could ever see you again. Just when I was longing to hear from you, your letter arrived. Nothing could have given me greater pleasure. Please tell the lay nun, Utsubusu, about all that I have written here. I would like to explain further about my teaching, but this letter is already too long. So he said I'm gonna reveal finally my true teaching, but I'm sorry. I've already gone on long enough. So I'm going to end it right there because I've already gone along long enough. And if you didn't already understand the true teaching, he just encoded in the first. See, he's only letting you. The doorway, it says in the Lotus Sutra, the doorway into the true aspect of all phenomena is narrow and only like it's like the eye of a needle. Anyway, the Bible quote, the eye of the needle. I don't want to go into that right now. It's getting late. But anyway, it's the same idea in the Lotus Sutra that the only way to go through the eye of the needle or into this portal that's super narrow is through faith. And so he already did that in this. He set the portal there. You want to go through it, you can go back and read what he just wrote. He already said the true teaching, but he's going to tell you, I haven't said it yet. And that's because he's a true wizard. So we're going to go back to the wizardry of Nichiren Daishonin on the next installment. For now, I got to get ready for my radio program. So call into my radio program twice a week. If you're AM, it's early for California folks, but anyway, 6 a.m. California time, which is 7 a.m. Mountain time. This is all on Sunday. 8 a.m. Central time. 9 a.m. East Coast time. In Europe, it's in the middle of the daytime, and I can't remember. You guys all change these clocks. In Japan, we don't change anything. We don't even change our underwear. No, I'm just joking. But nothing changes. We're still living in the fucking Stone Ages in Japan. We have a little heater behind me that tries to keep this room warm, and it's fucking freezing. Run by kerosene because we're still in the fucking Stone Ages here. Anyway, so nothing changes. We don't change our clocks. So you guys change your clocks, and every time it confuses me. So I don't want to go through all the times because I can't remember them all in Europe because I don't know who went back or forward or whatever you guys do. So that's the time now for Pacific Standard Time or fall time. The show is the exact opposite, 12-hour difference on Wednesday. It's a hump day show. For you guys in the U.S., it's your hump day. It's my it's my morning Japan time, 11 o'clock. It's your 6 p.m. at night if you're in California, 7 p.m. at night if you're in the mountain area. Central time zone will be 8 o'clock at night and 9 o'clock for the East Coasters. So, and that'll be too late in the European people, so call in on Sunday afternoon if you're in Europe. So that's the times. Call into the show. If you forget the number, you can remember this way. 10 my axe 2015, which is 1-646-929-2015. Call in at those times, or you can go online and you can wait until my radio program. The radio program's called Major Tim to Ground Control. It used to be called From Time Without Beginning, but I was ready to transcend that name of my radio show because I've started an organization called From Time Without Beginning, which is going to be slowly revealing some of the things that you haven't yet been revealed to you on this matrix field, on this level of the matrix field. It hasn't yet been revealed, but I'm bringing it in from my past lives because I won't yet reveal who I was in my past lives, but I've now contacted myself in 3 lives back and possibly 4. I'm still figuring that one out. And I'm revealing some stuff that this reality hasn't yet been able to take on, and now I'm ready to reveal it. So you're going to have to see what Time Without Beginning releases, and that's the organization I'm founding. But the radio show now changed from Time Without Beginning to Major Tim to Ground Control, because I'll get into what the ground control is. That's the reality police that tries to hold you back, and that's just your fundamental darkness. So, okay. I'll be back at you next time. Thanks, I love you guys, and thank you for listening this long. Okay, I'm back at you. I just figured out I have this new webcam thing on my computer I didn't know I have, and you can put little stupid things around the outside, so since it's around Christmas time. I'm getting ready to do weddings this morning, but I have a little time to finish up what I did the other day, and I can center this webcam here. I don't think this webcam on my computer is as probably the sound quality and the picture is probably not as nice as my video that I normally, or my Sony camcorder that I usually use. But anyway, we'll see. I'm going to test it out, see how it looks. So I hope it's rolling. Yes, it looks like it's rolling. Okay. So here's where I left off yesterday. This is again Letter to Misawa, written by Nichiren Daishonin. Okay, I would like to explain further about my teaching, but this letter is already too long. Earlier I mentioned the Zen Nembutsu and precept schools. But of the many schools of Buddhism, the true word is the very teaching that brought ruin upon China and will destroy Japan as well. Not only were 6 priests, the Tripitaka masters Sanwu Wei, Qin Cheng Xie, and I hope I'm saying those right, and Puk Ung, and the great teachers Kobo, Chikaku, and Chiso confused as to the relative superiority of the Lotus Sutra and the 3 True Word Sutras, such as the Mahavairoshana. Mahavairoshana. I don't know how to say that word. This is old Indian Sanskrit word, probably. Okay, but the first 3 Tripitaka masters also made objects of devotion representing the 2 diamond and womb realms and misled people to believe that these mandalas had originated in India. Being so deceived, the 3 great teachers learned the true word doctrines, brought them to Japan, and spread them about throughout the land to everyone from the ruler on down to the common people. Emperor I can't say this Chinese name, or maybe I could, Shuangsheng of China lost his empire because of the true word doctrines, and Japan is also steadily declining. The retired emperor of Oki, the reason they called him the retired emperor of Oki, he was the first emperor who was exiled out of Japan onto the island of Oki. This is right the time Nichiren was born in 1222, actually. He says he believes he was born at that time because the country was going into total turmoil. So he was born to bring it back to sanity somewhat. Hasn't got there yet, but his teachings haven't fully spread yet. Okay, that's why I'm here. Okay, retired Emperor of Oki, who served as the 82nd Emperor, was robbed of his power by the Kamakura government despite great Bodhisattva Hachimen's oath to protect 100 successive rulers. This misfortune was solely the result of prayers offered by eminent priests who followed the 3 great teachers mentioned above on behalf of the imperial court. These prayers rebounded upon the originators. So people of Japan thought if they prayed to Bodhisattva Hachimen, all the first 100 emperors would be protected. And of course, people use this lie. This was a true word lie. True word is one of the sects of Buddhism in Japan. One of the many lies they used during World War II, because they thought even the Buddhist priests that were calling themselves Buddhists of the Pure Land and of the Nichiren Shu and other very twisted schools of Buddhism in Japan were mixing the Shinto religion with the Buddhist religion, and even claiming the emperors would be protected by the Buddhist deities because they were buying into the lie that somehow Amaterasu, the sun god who stabbed a sword into the ground and pulled it up to make the islands of Japan, was somehow a true story. Um, so where was I? However, it has now turned to the men of the same evil doctrine it once opposed. Therefore, as Japan no longer has a ruler worthy of protection, Brahma, Chakra, the gods of the sun and moon, and the four heavenly kings have reached a decision and ordered a foreign country to threaten Japan. They have also dispatched the votary of the Lotus Sutra as their envoy. The ruler, however, does not heed his warning. So he's saying right here, they dispatched the votary of the Lotus Sutra. So he goes on and says, I don't know who this votary of the Lotus Sutra guy is, but it's funny because I happen to have his teachings, and he's supposed to be here, but I don't know who he is. And then he says, and they even dispatched this guy to warn the leader of Japan, which is the shogun, which he sent to the retired shogun, actually, who he knew was the real leader, not the current shogun at the time. And he says there's not a leader worth protecting in Japan at the time, because the true leader was in exile, or the few emperors were actually three of them. One of them was killed in the same year, the year before before Nichiren was born. One of the emperors was killed, and the other two were exiled, which is the first time in the history of Japan that something like this has ever happened. And so that was one of the many disasters predicted in the Lotus Sutra. But the last disaster was foreign invasion. And after he wrote this letter on securing the peace of the land through the propagation of the true teaching, which is in Japanese is Risho on Kokuron, he warned the government that this was going to happen because it was the final disaster, because every other disaster happened. So he knew it was, if every other disaster that was listed in the sutras happened in this one country, and the only one that hadn't happened is foreign invasion, then if the sutras are right, then this is the next level. So as soon as he did that, he warned them, and now he says it's happening. So he's basically saying that he's the votary of the Lotus Sutra, though he says in the same letter he's not. That's, you got to read what he's actually saying. This is the way Japanese don't want to ever put out their true face in public, because they always have this in the home face and outside the home face. So they'll only tell the person closest to themselves anything about themselves that's good, and everyone outside, I'm a piece of shit, bow down, and yeah, that's just the cult of Japan right now, and it always has been, probably. Okay. On the contrary, he sides with the priests. Okay, once again, I'm going to go back a little bit. Okay. Therefore, as Japan no longer has a ruler worthy of protection. So he's writing right here, the shogun is a piece of shit. And he's not even the real shogun. The shogun's the one in retirement who I sent the letter to, warning. Brahma, Chakra, and the gods of the sun and the moon, and the four heavenly kings have reached a decision and ordered a foreign country to threaten Japan. And this is when the Mongols were invading Japan. They have also dispatched the votary of the Lotus Sutra as their envoy. So the ruler, however, does not heed his words. And who's the his? It's the votary of the Lotus Sutra, who is Nichiren, who wrote the letters to the rulers. On the contrary, he sides with the priests, thus creating chaos in both the secular realm of government and the religious realm of Buddhism. As a result, he has become a formidable enemy of the Lotus Sutra, and as his slander has long continued, this country is on the verge of ruin. Today's epidemic is no less than a harbinger of a great